Hello there and welcome to Chita Diaries. I hope you're okay. Today's video is a story time, as you can tell from the title, and shout out to my friend Susan. She insisted that I make this video because we had this chat together, like she was laughing her butt off, like it was funny to her, but to me, it was chest pains and just lamenting about this whole situation. And she's like, yeah, she asked me to do a video because she thought it might be useful or just funny or entertaining. So here I am. Susan, this is for you. So yeah, for all the old subscribers, welcome back. I hope you've been well. Life has been lifing. That's like a thing the kids say these days, right? But I am just I'm so tired. Today's a Friday. I haven't filmed in a while, but I'm like, you know what? Let me just sit back, relax. I know my skin looks bad, but yeah, so much has been I'm just tired. Like so much is going on. I'm just tired. I come home from work, I'm tired, and I'm like, it is what it is. We move. So if you're new and you've just stumbled upon this title and I do natural hair videos, so I want to issue that disclaimer. You don't have to subscribe. Like you can just watch this video, give it a like, and then move on. There's absolutely no pressure to subscribe. I know YouTubers love it when new subscribers come in, but I wouldn't want you to subscribe to a story time when I mostly do natural hair videos. And then two, I ramble a lot. Okay, so if you don't like long videos, though I don't know how long it's because I just began, again, please feel free to click out so we can issue that disclaimer and there's no one complaining in the comments. I've told you. So yeah, today's video, and I'm trying to have some structure, I got some notes, pray for me, is a story time on how I purchased my first home. And when I actually got the title deed, it was literally my 27th birthday. I actually have a birthday vlog where I almost said it, but I was like, no, let me not say anything too premature. Let me give it some time before I can speak on it. Because at the time, the reason why I didn't want to do a video about it is because I felt I was coming from a place of privilege, and maybe people might just catch feelings because it wasn't something relatable to do content on. And then as years went by, I was like, wait a minute, each year when my birthday, okay, so every year on my birthday, I clock, a year of me owning this house, and I think I'm ready now, with the nudging of Susan to actually tell this story, because I think this is something that might be helpful to somebody. I know most of us see YouTubers in the West, buy homes, a whole thing, and they use their YouTube money and all of that. It's always these good vibes, and it's inspiring, and it just looks so easy. But I can give you my Zambian perspective, even though mine is coming from a place of privilege. I will issue that disclaimer as well. But I hadn't really seen someone my age from our country, talk about the experience, what they went through, all the procedures of buying a home. So yeah, this is what this video is about. Again, they are rumble, so buckle in. The year was 2018. It was 2018. I was 26 at the time, and I had been in formal employment for 5 years at that point. So I was earning a decent amount of money. I was in a single income household. I didn't have dependents. I felt like I was making a decent amount of money, and it was time for me to start making some better life choices for myself, because 5 years had gone by. I remember cracking up with my friends colleagues, where I was like, guys, how has 5 years passed? I remember saying the only thing I have to my name is a laptop. I just get paid, the salary comes in, it goes out. And I'm somebody who is terrible at saving. I'm absolutely terrible at saving. But I remember in the beginning of that 5th year, I was like, I really need to start thinking about just being proactive about my future. It could be assets or anything. I need to do something. I did have a plot. I don't know if you guys want to hear that story time about buying a plot from a Zambian council, but yeah, let me know. So at the time, I had a plot, and I thought I would just build Is that a goat? I think it's a goat. You guys, like I know I live in Jongwe and there's farms, but I live in a suburban area. You guys, like the one time in weeks I sit down to film someone. By the way, it's like it's 20:45. Somebody has just arrived from work, or I don't know where, with a goat. Like, why? Anyways, they're driving away. I hope that goat is going with them, because why? That's fighting. That's fighting your friends who want to film. What was I even talking about? So yes, I had the plot, and my original idea was to build on it. I thought I would build on it, and it was a really good size plot. So it was a 70 by 40 meter plot. If you're familiar with that, if you're American, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what that is, but you can just convert 70 meters by 40 meters. That's how big the plot was. And I thought I could build two homes, so like one for me and one for a tenant. And this was in Chiwambo. So I purchased this plot from Chiwambo District Council. At the time when I purchased it, I think in 2014 or 15, it was only 8.5. Like, it was for that size, for 8.5, like, it was a steal. So I was like, you know what, I'll just build. But I had no savings. I'm someone who doesn't know how to save. So I thought I could have access to a loan. A loan or a mortgage. And I kind of shopped around and asked, and I quickly found out that, and this is something that I didn't know, so I guess this is like lesson number one. If you just walk into a bank or a lending institution with like 50 kwacha in your pocket, nobody is going to give you money to build a house. Even if you earn like a decent amount of income, like your job is secure, you are debt free at that point, like you don't have any prior debt, your net salary is okay, looks okay to you, like nobody just gives you money to build a house like outright. You need collateral. So people who get money to build a house need to give the bank something that is worth the amount that they're going to lend to you. So if you have another house, preferably they hold on to that title deed, and then they can give you the money to build. So that plan was like quickly scratched off. I also had like a different plan. I was like, if I'm not going to build a home, maybe I'll start a business, but just something that's giving me money, just me being an adult and not just sitting here and waiting for my salary. So again, this is 2018. I was all about, natural hair or just hair care, and I wanted to open a hair salon. I won't really like divert too much on that, but point is, I reached out to two people. One was an already established hair salon, so I could like find the capital and just like, basically buy shares or something. And she like ignored me, you guys. Again, that's like a whole other story time of how awkward that encounter was, and still is to this day. It was so awkward. And then the second person, when that didn't go through, was like a friend who didn't have a hair salon yet, but she had like the expertise. But then when I approached her about it, somebody else had already wanted to work with her, and I think they were, I guess they were better connected. So she basically turned me down, but like respectfully. And everything happens for a reason. Like, I wasn't mad at her. Like, I was just like, it's cool and everything. And then she eventually did open her own hair salon, like a couple of years after, like, all of that, because we're in 2022 now and everything. But anyways, point is, like, my mind was just like, I need to do something productive. So I couldn't build. I couldn't get money to build. I could get money for a business loan. But I just didn't want to get money for a business loan and then not have like a concrete plan. Like the closest thing to anything concrete was me, starting like a hair salon, and even maybe doing like a bit of retail with hair products from abroad and all of that. That also fell through. So I was like, okay, fine, you know what? I'm going to buy a home. And now is where like I began to learn things along the way that I honestly hadn't thought about. So I actually, like, let me big up my family. Like, we aren't rich or anything, but we were raised by very, responsible and productive parents. Like, they did a lot with what they had. Like, I'm super grateful to them. Like, we were never we're never hungry. Like, we weren't poor, but we definitely weren't rich. But they did the best that they could. Like, just typical. It's like it's what every working Zambian family, can attest to. Like, we all came from those homes where like our parents did the best that they could and everything. So my parents do own property, and then I also have siblings who are older than me. And yeah, like some have like homes and land and everything. But it's where I didn't really know these things. Like people just like, you just see, oh, somebody has bought a house, you complain about them paying back like a mortgage and everything, but or just a loan. But I didn't really know what the details were or what it was like. Just for example, how I thought I could just walk up and say I want to build a house, like give me money, like and then I'll build it. Like I had no idea that banks don't just give you something without collateral. So I ended up learning things along the way. So now I decide I'm going to buy a home. And at the time I was living in Chisamba. So for my old subscribers, like I started my channel when I was living in Chisamba because that's where like my job was. And for my international viewers, I live in Zambia. I'm sure I'll put it down in the description box if anybody even checks, you know, like location tags. I live in Zambia. It's a small country in Southern Africa, and our capital city is Lusaka. So that's where I was raised and everything. And it's a capital city. I think it doesn't matter where you live in the world, you know how expensive capital cities are. And then my company transferred me to a really small, yeah, like a small town, almost rural, like a farming community type of environment. And like the cost of living is way cheaper there. And I'm so glad that I had that exposure, because I realized that there's a world outside of the city and there's so many opportunities. And I'm so grateful for the 5 years that I lived there. In fact, now, even when I got transferred again, I went to another small town, though this one is a bit more modern or urban, but still a small town. And yeah, like the things I was able to do with my earnings in a small town were far more than I could have possibly done if I'd lived in a very expensive city. So anyways, with that, you know, going for me at the time, I knew, like, I just peeped, you know, I peeped around like how much are homes in Lusaka here and there, and it was like the type of starter home, even just a starter home that I wanted was nothing less than, I think, 850, like 850,000 kwacha, and the standard was like 1 million, 1.5 going up, in like a, not even like a fancy neighborhood, just something simple. And I know I wanted a 3-bedroom, 2 baths, like that was my plan. I wanted a solid home, to buy a solid home, like not a flat or a semi-detached. I wanted an actual home. And Lusaka was just way out of reach, like it was so freaking expensive. So now that I saw that's how much, you know, things were, I started looking, because at the time I was living in Chisamba. So Chisamba, a small town. There was another sort of like a far bigger town, but still relatively cheaper than the capital city, and that's Kawe. So I began looking at real estate in Kawe, and there were, you know, like there were cheaper homes. So to me rather, it was making sense to buy a home. Like it didn't have to be Lusaka. It could be in the outskirts. In fact, there's even more fresh air there. Like that was my thinking. Like that's what I wanted. I do later on when I do, I think, a part 2, you will decide whether, you know, that was wise or not. Because if you're doing it for the sake of being a landlord, like the rental income that you get is minimal. Because obviously, like if you have a tenant in Lusaka, like you can charge more for rentals than you can in smaller towns. Anyways, I didn't really think that part through. But I was like, I want a solid house. I actually want a solid house. So that's how I started looking around, and I just had that intention with me. I was like, I want to buy a home. So thankfully something came up, and actually even before it came up, I wanted to know what I could actually, you know, borrow, like it being a mortgage or a loan. Let me look at my notes so that I'm on track. One second. Okay, so we're on track. So this is the part that made me delay making this video for years, because I was like, it's unfair. If I was in a position that I thought was even privileged compared to the average Zambian, I was like, what, like what more people who don't even earn this much? Like my take home was some people's gross. In fact, it was even more than some people's gross. And yeah, I was like how is this video going to be helpful? But then I've come to realize that there are some people who earn what I make and even far more, and they're blowing their money. Like money just comes in, comes out. Maybe you've been working for 10 years now. Next thing you know, it'll be 20 years and then 30 years. And then like, yeah, I just thought, I could speak to somebody my age. Though I'm 30 now. When I was having these thoughts, I was 26, but I told myself that I don't want to be that person personally, okay, who is 55 and just had a life full of enjoyment, and I retire with like no home, and then I continue to rent. I just didn't want to be that person. And the younger you are, like the earlier you start with these things, the better it is. You can make mistakes, and honestly, the earlier you start anything with the way the economy is going, the cheaper it will be. I have friends who, yeah, I would talk about this like saving instead of borrowing. I had friends who went the saving route and have been building slowly, and that like them starting again when we were like 25 or 26, now we're in our 30s. I'm really glad they did. And even they say like just the cost of building materials, like they were able to push things to a certain level, and they're glad they did it then, because the cost of building materials now is like insane. Like things just keep going up, so the earlier you start the better. So anyways, what was I saying? So yeah, I now needed to know what I was entitled to. Not really entitled to, but what I had access to. Yeah. So I was young. I won't give exact figures because I don't want people counting my money, but let's just use like a rough figure of 10K. So 10K take like that was my take home, like a net pay. And for most lending institutions, even as you're going to borrow, there's always a limit. They if you take home or your net salary is 10,000 kwacha, like nobody's going to loan you 10,000. No one is going to loan you money where your monthly deductibles are 10,000 kwacha. There's always a limit. It just depends. For some banks, it might be 40, like you have to remain with 40% of your salary. For some, you have to remain with 50% of your salary. Some, it's even as low as 30. It just depends. So you also have to keep that in mind. Because why would they want to encourage you to be like hungry and have nothing left? Yeah. So that's something else. So even though I wanted to borrow a certain amount of, I needed to know what the monthly deductibles were based on the interest rates that were going to be offered to me and whether, it could fit. So I went with all this confidence thinking, I earned a good amount of money take home, like better than, a lot of people that I know, which I was grateful for. And I just assumed I would have access to a lot, like that 850 or 7, I wasn't thinking straight. And also, I didn't know how high interest rates were in this country. Like I was Googling people out there who have 4% for their mortgage. I was like, worst case scenario, maybe it's like, but just I mean, like I didn't know how bad the interest rates were. So your first option is banks. And again, I tried walking in as myself to my bank, and do I want to name them? No, I won't name them. But yeah, I've been with them since I was 17. Yeah. So I walked in as myself, and I mentioned that I wanted to get a mortgage, and the maximum repayment period was 5 years. And based off of that amount, first of all, I didn't even qualify for a mortgage, but I did qualify for a personal loan. I think the amount was like 185,000. And like that's like you can't build, some okay, what I wanted. And again, nothing fancy, but I was just like, that's not much. And then I didn't qualify for a mortgage, like at all. Also, like the banks were off for a mortgage. And then there's the Zambian National Building Society that has always been there. I looked it up, like it's actually legit, and they do offer mortgages. So if you would like to buy a home outright, or that option where you want money for building materials and then you give them like your title deed for collateral, they do that. I don't think they have a limit on how much they can give you. I remember back in 2018, like I was heavy on their website, and they even have like a cute calculator and everything of how much you. But I think that they have a maximum number of years. I think it's if it's not 20 years, it's 25 years of the repayment period. And again, if you're 45, you can't go and get a mortgage for 25 years, even if you have the money. Like you have to be, like it's up until you're like our normal retirement age, unfortunately. So again, if you're young and you want to go down the route of a mortgage, the earlier you can do it, the better. So I typed in the budget I had. Again, rough estimates here, let's say 500k, because I realized that maybe 1 million might be too high. Even the 500,000 kwacha to buy a home in a small town, like a nice solid home, I think the net deduction was like 8,000, but it was so high. And then BS is even cheaper than what banks offer. They're definitely cheaper than what banks offer for a mortgage, and they have longer repayment periods. Like, it was just, I was like, okay, all right then. So this can happen, but the only way I think I could get something within my ranges for maybe like 200 to 250,000, then I would meet that threshold of either 40%, where I'll be left with 40% of my salary. But I didn't want to go that low. I'm like, what do I also have a life to live. You know what I mean? Like I have bills to pay. Like, I don't want to go in debt when I don't even have a secondary source of income. So I was like, I don't want it to go that low. So this is where now like the major privilege comes in. So if you work for a huge institution, sometimes they can be the lending institutions themselves, or they have MOUs with other lending institutions where the interest rates are far lower. And I fell into that bracket. So I was very, very, very fortunate. And again, I was just like, I have this opportunity. Let me not squander it. Let me not continue to waste my life away. Okay, not really waste my life away, but I was like, this is an opportunity. I'm terrible at saving. Let me get a home. So I now went that route. Now, like, I was within like my limit of what I could borrow. And I think I ended up, like, the amount that I had access to, or the home that I ended up buying, was like 40% of my net pay, which is like a completely different discussion. Like, yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, so now I knew what I had access to. So I had a budget for home that I was looking around. And then I just asked around Chisamba, like, if anybody hears about home and anything, like, I'm interested, like, I'd like to buy. Like, I asked around, because by the way, small towns, everybody knows each other. Like, all of you, where I live now, it's like I said, it's bigger and more urban, even though it's classified as a small town. Like, not everybody knows everybody here. But where I was in Chisamba, like, a farming community, literally everybody knew everybody. So as soon as I had like the word out, like, everybody like knew. And for sure, like, I don't even think, like more than 6 months went by. And no, actually, like, what am I saying? I think it was like a month or two, and a home came up. So there was a business or corporation next to ours where like the manager was retiring, and he had a home in Chiwombo. So Chiwombo is adjacent to Chisamba. It's another small town, but this area was closer to Lusaka than Chisamba was. It was like in between. And he was selling a home. It was a 3-bedroom, it was a 2-bath. It was built, I think, like maybe like a year or two prior. So it was relatively new, and his asking price was within my range. So I was really, really excited. I went and saw it. It already had a tenant. It wasn't fancy, but it was a solid house. It was built well in a relatively nice neighborhood. Like it wasn't like, like a compound or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with the compound. Please don't come for me. But okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But like, it was I'm trying to think of the adjective without sounding, snooty or anything. But it was in a decent neighborhood. It was nice. They had it had space. In fact, that's what I should have used. It had space. In fact, it still has space. It was a garden. I liked that. Though it was built on an estate, like an open space, so it had no wall fence, but still, like, it was a decent house, and I was really excited. I was like, you know what, this is a start. It's not my dream house, but it's what I can afford right now. Let me go for it. So now I now go to like the place of my employer, who has is able to at least facilitate for this with MOUs or whatnot, where I have access to a certain amount of money. But though my limit was even less than 500k, but at least it was something. I was able to afford a home. And now this is where like I began to learn about the actual process of purchasing a home. And here, like, I have to refer to my notes. So like I had mentioned, nobody gives you money outright. You need collateral. So since I was buying a home, once you buy it, they hold on to your title deed until you finish that payment, which makes perfect sense. Because imagine, like, some of the characters in our lives, or even even just ourselves, like some of us know ourselves, though, okay, no, like I wouldn't be that bad. So some people could get like 500,000 kwacha, even just a million kwacha to build a home and just blow it on like random stupidity in like a month, and you would finish, and then you're paying back a loan, maybe you default on it, and then like what's the bank supposed to do? So I understand why they don't give money outright, I understand why they don't just give money anyhow. So even though I was buying this home, like the lending institution was going to hold on to the title deed until I paid it off. That was the first thing. So now I asked, like, what do I need to do? Like, what are the requirements? And this is where like I need to refer to my notes. So the first thing that I had to do, and I believe even with banks or any other big place that you're getting a mortgage from, or a home loan or a house loan, is you need to have the house valued. So that's your first bill, my friend. And in fact, let me say that again, if you want to buy a house, don't have 50 kwacha to your name or in your pocket and say, I'll just get a loan and pay for it. My friend, I needed at least, I think, how much did I think I have notes here. I needed about 30,000, which wasn't even enough. Like I had to get soft loans from family members. But a general rule here is that if you want to buy a house, like you're set on buying a house, my friend, and you want to buy a home for say 500,000 kwacha, save up at least 50,000 kwacha. If you're a superstar, even better, have 100,000, like 20%. Basically, have to, at the very least, 10% of what you need, to 10% of what that house will cost. No, in fact, that's a lie, because conveyancing fees are a mess. Okay, we'll get to that. Let's just say 20%. You need 20%. Okay, you need 20% of whatever the selling price of your house is, already locked and loaded in your savings before you even embark on buying a home. Okay, that's the first thing that I want to say. So now we're down to the bills that you have to spend. The first thing is you need to have your house valued, and you can't just get one of your cousins. Okay, because like with Zambians, we all have a cousin, we all have a person, okay, who can forge anything for us. Okay, so most lending institutions have a list of accredited people who can value your home, so that they have that value even as they are lending you this money for collateral and everything. So my bill, again, this was 2018. That was a completely different time, okay, with regards to the Zambian economy. I don't know how much things cost now. It's obviously far more, but I'm just trying to give you a ballpoint here. And I obviously can't recommend the place that I went to, even though they were absolutely lovely. The people who valued my home were the only like good experience out of all of this. Like, let me even tell you right now, they were so professional. Everything was just on point. They did a great job. It was very quick. I think I got my in fact, I met up with them like they used their fuel to take me to Chiwambo from Lusaka CBD. The guy built the house. Like I had my report in a couple of days. Very, very professional. And it cost me 3,000 kwacha. So the further you live, the more expensive it is, the bigger the property. But back then it was 3,000. I have no idea how much home valuation costs now. If you're someone who values home, let us know. So yeah, my first bill was a 3,000 kwacha. And then the next thing that I had to do was, now I needed what was it called? An offer letter? A contract of sale? I think it was an offer letter, sorry. I'm having a brain fart. But the actual like offer from the previous owner, or the owner who's about to say to you, saying this is how much the home is and everything that you can present, saying as proof of how much like you need money for. So I know for banks, they only give you 90%. So if your home, again, in fact, let's bring up your savings to 30%, okay? Because for banks, I don't know about it. I don't think ZNBS do that thing where they only give you 90%, but for banks, they only give you 90% of the figure that you're asking for, even though like you're going to be charged in terms of repayments for the whole 100%, like they retain a 10%. So yeah, I used this absolutely lovely valuation company. and it was on my lending institution gave me an option of 5. I think the first number I called on the list, they did a great job. So now they have this valuation report. I also have the offer letter from the seller, or the contract. The contract, I'm so sorry, you guys. Like, I'm so hungry and tired. But basically, but just know, like, it's like the letter for sale. It sounds so dumb. I apologize. So now they have that. And then what else did I need? So once they have that and everything, they get your NRC, they get, I think maybe even like the NRC of the seller and everything, that it has to be legit. You now have to go to Ministry of Lands, because this is the home on like Zambian, soil. So for Ministry of Lands, so I'm looking over at my laptop. That's, oh, sorry for scratching my nose. It's itchy. I promise you I wasn't taking for gold. I was just scratching the top. Apologies for those icky manners. So yeah. So now you go to Ministry of Lands. And then for Ministry of Lands, at the time in 2018, I had to pay for something called a search printout to, like, I guess, look for the house and just confirm it. And at the time, it was about 83 kwacha. So if you're taking this seriously, you can write this down. But obviously, you have to find out, because this was 4 years ago. Then there was also something called, so after they did that, there was something called a registration of assignment. So I think this is after you sign your contract, you've agreed to the sale, and like the person, like the seller has, sold you the land. It's called a registration of assignment, and it was 167 kwacha, so like rounded off, there's some increase there, plus 1% of the cost of the house, or the selling price of the house. So 167 kwacha plus 1% of whatever that amount is. So if your house was 500,000, you're paying them 5, so it's 5,000. That's 1%. 5,000 plus 167 kwacha. So that was a registration of assignment. Like, so this is like another bill. But fortunately, this one is capped at 15,000 kwacha. So if your home is more than 1.5 million, it's capped at 15,000. Again, I'm looking at this old list that I had from 2018. Things could have changed. The next thing, so I guess this is after you've done the sale, is a mortgage registration. And even this one was 1% of the selling price, capped at 4,000. Please, things should have changed, but I'm just giving you like a guesstimate, based off of what it was back then. And now we move on to conveyance fees. This is the lawyer, okay? You need a lawyer, my friend. Don't even think you can just find someone, they're your friend or whoever, and you buy a house. You need a lawyer to do all of these things, because I didn't even go to Ministry of Lands. Like, my lawyer was doing all of these things, and there's a particular type of lawyer who deals with conveyancy. So this is with the buying and selling of homes. So the standard fee, my friend, that you have to pay your lawyer is 10% of the selling price. Okay. So if your home costs 500,000, you are paying your lawyer 50,000 kwacha. It's standard. It's standard. It is standard. And I did not know this. If you want, you can try and skimp on a lawyer, but I would not recommend it, especially if you're buying from somebody who people run away with money. People run away with money. Like, you need somebody who can just do their job as well to make sure that this sale is legit. So I personally did not pay that. But still, I went, not really a Bakaya way or like a cousin way, but it was like a friend of a family or whatnot. So it was slightly cheaper, but still he worked for the law firm was legit, so very, very established. So I paid slightly less, but still it could easily have been 50,000 kwacha. So that's something else that you have to take into consideration. So anyways, the lawyer is somebody you need. Like, I have heard horror stories about people who have gotten scammed, and sometimes you might be dealing with a seller who is just problematic, because there are also fees that the seller has to abide to. I didn't know these things, and a lot of people who sell homes think you're scamming them or whatnot, because you need to provide these. I had to provide these documents to my lending institution, because everything has to be on point. So the seller has a consent to assign. It's a form I think you get from Ministry of Lands. At the time, it was about 334 kwacha. And then there was also like rates. So they check if the previous seller has been paying for their rates. If they haven't, they have to pay those rates, the land rates. And there's also something called a ground rent bill. And it was, I think it came to it came to 420 kwacha. I've forgotten what it was, but it was there. But it was something that the seller had to pay to Ministry of Lands before all this could be released and you could get your mortgage or and your title deed. So the seller has to comply with that. And then the seller also has to pay 5% to ZRA for property transfer tax. Here, trust me, if you're not dealing, in fact, even if somebody is learned, sometimes people don't who wants to pay taxes. Nobody wants to pay taxes. So some lending institutions will want to see that anyway, it was just a mess. Okay, some people don't care, as long as the title deed is done. Some lending institutions want everything to have been done even before they release the money, which is a madness. Or sometimes before you get a title deed, you need to present that all of these things have been done based on that. Anyways, the seller had to also pay property, and that was upsetting to him. He was like, why the hell am I paying for taxes? But legally, it should have. So for him, it was 5%. So if, for example, again, if you're, I think that, so if, for example, a home is 500,000 kwacha, the seller has to remove, even they have a bill of 25,000 kwacha that they have to pay to ZRA. So ZRA is Zambia's tax authority for the international viewers. So yeah, so all these bills are now on my head, and I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that I needed all of this. So I scraped around here and there, and because at that point, I was living debt free, yeah. Anyways, and I had to pay for these things, but I didn't know about them. So I'm telling you now that these things are a thing. What's next on the agenda? Oh, so you also you also have to go through the credit bureau. So where they check, your lending institution will ask you, to go and get a report to see if you have any debt from other places. So they aren't, giving you money when you have 50 kwacha left on your payslip every month type of scenario. Yeah. So I went through all of that. Ministry of Lands tried to kill me, you guys. Again, thank goodness I had a lawyer, because things don't I don't know if things have changed now. If you work for Ministry of Lands and you're watching this, what's the problem there? Things take forever. They took forever, and I couldn't get this money. I was dealing. Thank goodness I knew this seller from my corporate world, where he knew that I was the standard person and I was good for the money. But it took so long just getting these things done from one thing. It was weeks went by, you guys. I remember I started this process end of November, and my birthday is in March. Okay. It was just one thing after the other. Where you wait, it was taking 2 weeks to get one thing, a signature and approval. It was just a mess. So yeah, that was horrid. So now, unfortunately, my lending institution wanted the title deed to be in my name. Again, thank goodness I was dealing with a seller who knew I was good for the money, because I think things have changed now, because that was utterly ridiculous. But then the lending institutions' reason for that is that in the past they've issued out money, and then some people have been scammed, where somebody just runs and then or maybe it was somebody's nephew, somebody's uncle who was selling their house, and then you show up for the house and oh, actually the person who sold this to you isn't even the owner, just random stuff like that, like this is forged and the real owner of this house. Just a madness. So they wanted the title deed to be in your name. You go through all of this, and then they transfer the money to the seller. So that was it was a lot. It was so frustrating, but I eventually got my title deed, and then the money was transferred and the sale was complete, and I had a home. And I remember like my lawyer literally calling me on my birthday. He's like, like it's done now. You have your title deed. This is before, because obviously like the money was, yeah, for me like the home had happened. I wanted the home. The seller wanted his money, but everything like at least for the title deed, I remember it happened 6 March 2019. I was so happy. I prayed. Me who doesn't even go. Okay, like a fine. Okay, no. I was about to lie. Let me not lie. God is watching me. I don't really go to church, but like I was so happy. Like I thank God, and I'll get a bit sentimental. I had dreamed of so many things in my life. I would project the future, and I could not believe that at age 27 I had a home. Like even to this day, like I have to pinch myself. Like I didn't think I was capable of that. Of course, it came with a whole bunch of privilege, but like it still happened, and I was so grateful. I could not believe it. I was so happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I own a home now. And now the aftermath of being a landlady and just my conclusion on this whole experience, and whether I would recommend it, because this video has touched 40 minutes. I don't want to like keep you guys for too long. I will do a part 2. So in my part 2, I will talk about life with a mortgage. or should I do like a prequel of how I feel? Okay, I you know what? Let me just touch on this before I like cut this off and do a part 2. But my advice, even before, if you're just thinking about buying a home, if you're someone who's bad with money, like you can barely live within your means right now, like you don't want to get into that kind of long-term, very, very serious debt. It's not like a car loan, my friend. Like a mortgage for a home is no joke. Like it's for most of the time, it's for a long time. And two, like it's a lot of money. Like you have to be mentally prepared to adjust your lifestyle. Like you have to humble yourself. Like if you like nice things, I used to like nice things. I had to look for alternatives and just really, really tighten my budget. So if you're not that person who knows how to live within your means or to say no to certain things that you can't afford anymore, like the mortgage life isn't for you. And then some people will be like, why not just save and build a house? That's actually like a great way to do it. But I know myself, like the 4,000. Oh, I forgot something important. So even though like my at the time, like the money that was being deducted from my take home, like I had lost 40% of my salary. There was also home insurance, and that is compulsory with all of these lending institutions. Like you need to have home insurance. So it was like almost like it was like another grand that was being removed, and I was just like, oh, I couldn't believe it. It was like another grand that was being removed. So that's another bill that you have to consider, even as you are planning out how the next decade or so of your life. But if you're someone who's getting it from a bank, where I know most of the time it's for 5 years, there's also home insurance, which is very important. And please don't think you can skimp on home insurance. Like losing a car, losing something, like losing a TV, like that hurts a lot. But imagine losing an entire home in like a freak accident or a fire or something, like, and you're paying a mortgage for it. Like that is not something you want to experience. So please, yeah, do the home insurance thing. And most of the time with these lending institutions, they have MOUs with, because I'm sure they're giving mortgages to a whole bunch of people. So you could even get a insurance from a bank, or even just like independently, but home insurance is a must. So anyways, the point I was making was I really had to readjust my life. It was a shock. Like even to this day, I always refer to my life before 2019 as my pre-mortgage days, when I was a very happy, content little rich. Okay, I wasn't rich, but I lived a reasonably comfortable life that I took for granted with my income. So yeah, if you're someone who's not good, like don't even try it, fam. Like don't even try it. And then if you'd love to save, and you're like, is someone wondering like, why didn't you just save? I am someone, fine. I may not, I may be someone who lives within my means. I know how to prioritize my life, but I'm terrible at saving. And I knew that removing, let's do rough figures. putting a 5,000 in a savings account every single month and just sticking to it and being disciplined, or even a 6,000 in a bank account and just letting it, rise up, like to maybe, I guess, maybe between like 60 or 70,000 a year, where you first buy a plot, or you put a slab. Like, people do that and it works, but I know myself, like, I'm not that disciplined. And self-awareness is good. Like, I wasn't going to force myself. So not like I'll be that person who who would just save. I knew that I'm not really good at saving. So if I went that route thinking I would save to buy a house, like, I would never have one. Like, I would literally never had a house. I would never get a house. I needed to go the debt route. Sorry. Yeah. But if you want to save, that's also, like, in fact, I would even recommend saving. Like, that's a far better option. It just takes longer, things are slightly more expensive, but people say saving is better because the interest rates that you're paying back are insane. But I'm like, I have a house now versus you who might have a house in 10 years time, and so it just ends up balancing itself out. The money you'd be spending like inflation and stuff that's gotten more expensive, like, it will balance itself out with some of us who got that house through debt. Of course, even though we are obviously paying slightly more, but it tends to balance itself out. So it just depends on the type of person that you are. But overall, just be disciplined with money, and at the bare minimum, live within your means. If you're going to go this route, I think I'll end here. I don't want this to reach 50 minutes or an hour. It's because it's already very, very long. So I will do a part 2, and yeah, hopefully yeah, like, I don't know if I'm like, let me know if this is something that you've done, or maybe not, because that's a very personal thing. I don't think anybody would want to comment that they have a mortgage, like, or at least most people wouldn't. So anyways, I'm over rambling. Let me stop here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you're here for story times, don't feel pressure to subscribe. Just come and check out Chitta Diaries in a week or so if you want to see a part 2. And yeah, for the oldies, by the way, for those who are subscribed and don't watch my other content, hey, glad you've watched this one. I'm not mad at you. Even I'm tired of Natural Hair videos, so I do appreciate this view. And especially if you've gotten this for like 47 minutes, almost 48, good on you. And we'll end here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, okay, so this is like an outtake. I thought I was going to film part 2 tonight, but I won't. Like, I'm actually quite tired. But part 2 will be about my experience, dealing with a mortgage, my experience dealing with tenants, being a landlady myself, what the past 2 years have been like, etc. And yeah, like, that's where like things got dramatic. So yeah, you can stay tuned for that one. Like, I'm not clickbaiting you or anything. At least I don't think I am. But in case you're wondering what part 2 is about, like, it's not me continuing to talk about the process of purchasing a home. I think this is it. Like, this is what I'm going to say. Unless I remember something later on, then I'll add it in part 2. But that's it with regards to the actual buying process of a home. Part 2 will be purely about my experience owning it, like the actual owning part. So yeah, I'll see you in that one.